Hi Booktube, it's Amy, and I'm back reading again today from the Anatomy of Bibliomania by Holbrook Jackson. We're on page 283 of my edition, with a section titled Lachrymae Musarum. The power of books to cheer us out of our sad or sullen moods may not always follow the direct and merry path. It may reach its destination deviously by a tearful ellipsis or deflection through the veil of tears. For if The Innocents Abroad and Three Men in a Boat have made whole nations laugh, others, as East Lynne, The Old Curiosity Shop, and Clarissa, have made them weep. Scaliger never read Socrates' death in Plato's Phaedro, but he wept. Austen shed tears when he read The Destruction of Troy. When Sarah Fielding read Clarissa, she told Richardson her heart glowed. She was overwhelmed. Her only vent was tears. An old Scotch doctor, a Jacobean and freethinker who Sir George Trevelyan records, could only be got to attend church by the positive order of the Governor-General of the province in India where he was stationed, cried over the last volume of Clarissa, until he was too ill to appear at dinner. Tears flowed in 1850 when Macaulay cried his eyes out over the last volume of that book, and he gave Thackeray a vivid account of the effect of Clarissa on the English colony in India. He was passing the hot season in the hills when the Governor-General and the Secretary of the Government and the Commander-in-Chief and their wives, or rather with the Governor-General, the Secretary of the Government, the Commander-in-Chief, and their wives. He had Clarissa with him, and when they began to read it, the whole station bubbled over in a passion of excitement about Miss Harlowe and her scoundrelly Lovelace. The Governor's wife seized the book. The Secretary waited for it. The Chief Justice could not read it for tears. Thackeray recounts that as Macaulay told this tale of woe to him in the Athenaeum Club, he acted the whole scene, pacing up and down the club library. To complete my catalogue of the lachrymosities of the most bookish peer, I give that instance of his reading aloud the story of Lefebvre from Tristram Shandy to a party of friends visiting Lichfield on a Sunday in April 1849. I read the story with many tears, he confesses, and it was heard with tears, even by Trevelyan himself, who is not easily moved to that degree by fiction. Tears started to Dr. Johnson's eyes when at Oban he recited a passage from Goldsmith's Traveller, as Boswell helped him on with his great coat. And when he would try to repeat the celebrated prosa ecclesiastica pro mortiis, as it is called, beginning dies ire dies illa, he could never pass the stanza ending thus, tantus labor non sit casus, without bursting into the flood of tears. Charles Lamb would read noble passages from Milton, actually weeping as he read. Heine, when a youth, wept in his little room over the death of the most blessed heroes of freedom, King Aegeus of Sparta, Caius and Tiberius, Gracchus of Rome, Jesus of Jerusalem, and Robespierre of Paris. And earlier in his life he would steal into the palace garden at Dusseldorf to read Don Quixote, pronouncing the words aloud because of his lack of skill in reading. And thus were the birds in the streams able to hear, and being innocent like children, and like the boy himself, knowing nothing of the irony of the world, wept over the sorrows of the unhappy night. A veteran oak sobbed, and the waterfall wagged his white beard the more, and seemed to cry out upon the wickedness of the world. Quoting there from Heinrich Heine's memoirs. After hearing Panef read Pushkin to him, Tolstoy sat down on a sofa and wept causeless but blissful tears. Francis Hin's groom tells that his grandfather, rector of Monk Soham in Suffolk, was so tender-hearted that he was moved to tears by the Waverley novels. One night in 1881, during his residence on the island of Madeira, William Corey was reading Lanfrey's history when his wife, who was writing at the other end of the table, looked up and observed that he was weeping. "Yes," he said, "I am weeping as I wept 50 years ago over the death of Nelson." He was wrought up with the news of the disgraceful flight of our men from Majuba, and Lanfrey induced tears which purged him from despair. Twice in his life, 12 years apart, he was thus melted, prostrated, and yet comforted by Les Miserables. Books filled Alexander Smith with awe as though he stood in presence of a king. They give me tears, such glorious tears as Eve's fair daughters shed, when first they clasped a son of God, all bright with burning plumes and splendors of the sky. Some lines of poetry there from a life drama. Gray told Horace Walpole that the castle of Otranto made the undergraduates at Cambridge cry a little, and all in general afraid to go to bed o' nights, and the last scene of Henry V made Edward Fitzgerald blubber. But such examples are too frequent, so I shall end this chapter with an anticlimax, which is more in key with our Shavian Professor Gerard confesses that one day he was reading East Lynne, that Lachrymae bomb, which Mrs. Henry Wood threw so effectively at the Victorian age. As he read, he wept. The manner in which the tears ran down his cheeks made him an object of general attention. An elderly and benevolent clergyman, moved by this pathetic sight, expressed the hope that the weeping man was not in any trouble, and was perplexed when he learned with perfect truth that the professor was only crying because his book was so bad a book. God forbid that I should cry over Lear or Othello, he says. I should know that there was something the matter either with Shakespeare or with myself. The best books strike too deep for tears. And I'm reminded of the scene in the 1940, I'm lost as to what year, but the 1940s film adaptation of Little Women, that has June Allison playing Jo and Elizabeth Taylor playing Amy. But June Allison's character of Jo in the attic, weeping over her book that she's just written. Not because it's bad. Beth comes up there thinking perhaps Jo is, weeping because her book is bad. But no, Jo is weeping because her book is just so, so wonderful. But that brings us to the end of today's section. The next one here is titled Consolers and Refuges, which I think will bring us to the next part of the book here, where we'll be moving on to books pharmaceutically disposed, where we talk about the medicinal properties, or the healing properties of books. But we'll end it there for today.